Well, I'd like to say that we're here in Nicosia, in Nicosia, Cyprus, with the legal expert of Mr. Loucaides, and in his office. And we'd like to begin by asking him, how many years have you, Mr. Loucaides, served as Assistant Attorney General of the Republic, and how many years as Judge of the European Court of Human Rights?
The proper title is not Assistant Attorney General. I was the Deputy Attorney General of Cyprus for about 23 years. And as a judge, 9 years. Before becoming a judge of the European Court of Human Rights, Ireland, I was a member of the European Commission of Human Rights, which was the institution which was doing the work of the court in many respects before the court was established as a permanent judicial body. The commission was expressing its conclusions on cases reported to it in reports, and it was publishing its reports. They were not as binding legally as a judgment, but they had a lot of weight. They were, because they were coming from a body of lawyers, and it was considered as a quasi-judicial body. There I worked for 9 years also. I refer to that because the Commission has done a lot.
Can you tell us what
in the direction of human rights, yes?
Can you tell us the most important cases you remember fighting for the Republic of Cyprus?
Well, in fact, I was the representative, the agent, as they used to say, of Cyprus in the first 3 applications against Turkey, called interstate applications. And they were brought before the European Commission of Human Rights because the court was not at that time functioning in the same way as the Commission, where you could introduce directly a complaint against another country member of the Council of Europe and signatory of the European Convention, party to the European Convention of Human Rights. So the first 3 applications were brought like this. Soon after the invasion, we filed 2 applications against Turkey for mass violations of human rights by Turkey committed during the invasion. And I am really speaking about the worst kind of atrocities that a person can imagine. I'll give you some examples, and they are reported in the Commission's report, which I have until now, and later were published in the Sunday Times in England.
I remember seeing...
And the Commission found forced prostitution. They were taking women and they were putting them in houses, and they were forced, they were raped by the soldiers, Turkish soldiers. And I speak about a very great number of this kind of horrible incidents. There were ill-treatments of the worst kind of people in the areas where the army was getting occupation. There were mass murders and, of course, expulsion of persons from their homes and properties, something which still continues until today. Thousands of persons, Greek Cypriots, only Greek Cypriots, were expelled, forced to leave their houses and properties in the occupied part of Cyprus and they were finding refuge in the government-controlled area.
This,
And this horrible situation still continues in the sense that Turkey does not allow them to go back. This was a situation contrary to the convention and was found to be so by the Commission in the first three applications. The first two were examined together, and the third one came after some years where the violence was less, of course, because Greek Cypriots were not anymore in the occupied part of Cyprus in their great majority. And the remaining violations, which continued and continue until today, was that the confiscation of the properties of the Greek Cypriots, the refusal to allow them to go back to their properties, looting, stealing of movable properties, and the idea was, of course, that of ethnic cleansing. The object was to send the Greek Cypriots in the occupied part of Cyprus away, so that they will convert the area to a Turkish area, Turkish populated area. And among these breaches of the rule of law, of the human rights and the international law, was the capture of Famagusta and the organized expulsion and refusal of all Greek Cypriots, refusal of Turkey to allow all lawful inhabitants of that town to be back. This unique situation, that is, of having a town empty from its lawful inhabitants, kept empty intentionally by one country, member of the Council of Europe, and a candidate for the European Union, is really something that should have caused great concern to all those who believe in the rule of law. But unfortunately, no much interest shown on this, for this tragic situation by European countries, by those who are dedicated to the cause of human rights. The last case in which I did not participate, because I was by that time a judge, it's very important, is an interstate case which was brought before the court itself and was decided by that court in 2001, where the court found continuing violations by Turkey in the form of deprivation of properties of thousands of Greek Cypriots in the occupied area, and also they found that no information was given to the relatives of many Greek Cypriots, about 1,500 persons. The situation was continuous today, of course. And that case is very important because it's a judgment. There is now, for the first time, a judgment of a court binding on Turkey. But there was no effort by Turkey to comply with its provisions, with what was decided.
Turkey when did Turkey begin to push its propaganda for the pseudo-state?
Well, the pseudo-state was declared in 1983. And no country has recognized it, apart from Turkey. And it remains, as the court, the European Court of Human Rights, has expressly found, a subsidiary administration of Turkey, nothing more. And they are completely dependent on Turkey, financially and otherwise. I mean, the full control in that area of the pseudo-state is exercised by the Turkish army. They have the last word. The people there are not free, and they are not allowed to become free.
The Council of Europe report of 1976 condemned Turkey on 7 articles of the European Convention. We read about this in the Bloody Truth, the book published by the Movement for Freedom in Cyprus.
That is coming, yes, from. It was in the report of the European Commission of Human Rights in the first 2 cases, which I have with me.
Excellent. And this report was supposed to be a secret report, but was leaked.
Well, it was supposed to be a secret report, yes, but it was published by the Sunday Times. I mean, certain passages and findings of the Commission were published, something that made Turkey express its concern and protest to the newspaper, as far as I know. Because you were speaking about the mass murders, the rapes, the treatments, etc.
The rapes included the rapes of women from the ages of 5 until...
Yeah, exactly. There was no limit, either excluding young or old women. And indiscriminately, women were taken, put in a place in a house or houses, and they were forced to stay there and become victims of rapes.
And according to...
And rapes were committed in front of the families of the women. I remember one witness, because I was at that time presenting the case of Cyprus. One witness, a man, who was explaining to the members of the commission who came into Cyprus to examine the facts, ascertain the facts, about the rapes, etc. And he was hesitant to speak more about this subject when he was forced somehow, not forced, pressed, to give more details of what he knew personally. He had to admit that his wife was raped in front of him. And in front of the children, of course, of their own children. There was no limit to these atrocities. And is it not an irony to hear Turkey now to speak about human rights of the Palestinians when they still commit violations of human rights in Cyprus? And they have in their past history, recent history, all these condemnations for serious atrocities.
The case of Loucaides is one that involves in its opening complaint the recognition, it equates the TRNC, the so-called pseudo-state, with the Turkish Cypriots. Now, legally, the Turkish Cypriots are only represented by the Republic of Cyprus. Is that correct?
Represented? No, well, they are citizens of the Republic of Cyprus, like Greek Cypriots. But if you want to know about this case, as far as my knowledge goes, well, I did not know Mr. Loucaides. I got to know him through a person whom I had for whom I had a great respect. And he introduced me to Mr. Tzibis. He broadly explained to me the idea of his action, showing the TRSC, as he was calling this, the people who were grouped together and called themselves members of PTRC or representing PTRC in the United States, because of his legal approach, based, as he was telling me, on the American laws, that there is jurisdiction in the United States to go against any group of persons who have dealings or transactions in the United States. But I don't know much about this case, because although he said that he asked me to somehow cooperate with him as an agent for his case in Cyprus, I did not get sufficient information. And then I found out that he was not an expert in international law, he was not an expert on human rights, he did not have sufficient knowledge of what happened in Cyprus, in fact. And therefore I told him, man, I am sorry, I do not want to associate myself with your case.
It seems that that the people that have been involved with with his case, including myself and my wife. My wife comes from a family of refugees, and as a plaintiff, he offered to involve her in a bigger class action lawsuit.
That's how he describes his action.
Right. And how would this legally be, wouldn't this be putting the TRNC isn't it against international law for any transactions to be done in the name of the TRNC? A lawsuit against the TRNC or business with the TRNC?
Is an illegal regime. And there is already resolutions, it's more than one, of the Security Council of the United Nations asking all states not to recognize or in any way facilitate or assist this pseudo-state. And therefore, any effort to present themselves as a state is illegal. It's contrary to international law, contrary to binding resolutions of the Security Council. And apart from that, I cannot say that they can get the legal recognition by being sued. I mean, international recognition as a state. But it is, of course, a negative step to even accept their existence de facto, or act in respect of them as they are in existence as an entity. Why? Because in this way you are giving standing to something which is illegal, and that may open the way to a gradual acceptance by governments, possibly organizations, leading possibly to a legal recognition.
Well, the Cyprus Action Network of America has been following Loucaides' activities for the past 2 years, and we have seen that before 2009 he was never involved in the Cyprus question. He's Greek American, his family's not from Cyprus. Regardless of that, he was introduced to us by a supporter of his during July 20th of 2010. I personally, as the press officer of the Cyprus Action Network of America, met with him after our July 20th protest, so he didn't even participate in any activism against Turkey. And what we found very strange about him is that he appeals to people's hearts on the Cyprus question, but he was never active on Cyprus before 2009.
Or afterwards,
Or
apart from this action. I myself expressed the same views to him. I told him, listen, the difference between you and myself regarding any actions against Turkey is that I am living in Cyprus. I'm a Cypriot, a Greek Cypriot. I have sent my son to the army. I have lived all these activities, war activities of Turkey in Cyprus, and I have felt those negative, unpleasant feelings that are caused by such a situation. You are a foreigner, in fact, you are living away, you have not lived these experiences. You may not know as much as I do about them.
in your opinion, did you know that Tsibilis originally sued Turkey?
Yes.
And then he changed his suit?
Yes.
And withdrew Turkey completely?
Yes.
And this was very strange because it seems that he is insistent on suing the TRNC, the illegal entity, instead of suing Turkey. And in another case, he filed a lawsuit on behalf of the Latin American celebrity Mr. Julio Iglesias. Mr. Julio Iglesias was going to perform in occupied Cyprus, and he did not go, and the Turkish hotel or casino company is suing him, and Mr. Tsibilis now intervenes with another lawsuit against the TRNC. So it leads observers of his actions to question his motives. Why is he constantly putting paperwork in the federal courts in Washington on behalf of suing the TRNC?
Was the action for Iglesias directed against TRNC and not Turkey?
It was against TRNC and not Turkey, as far as I know.
Well, that I don't understand and I don't accept.
Mr. Christos Klididis seems to agree with the opinion on the activities of Tsibilis, because he had said in a...
He disagrees.
He disagrees with his
Yes.
activities. And I have one quote here from Eleftheria newspaper in London. It says, I do not agree, this is Mr. Christos Klididis, I do not agree with taking proceedings against the so-called TRNC in any capacity, corporate or not. I wish to remind that we struggled hard against Turkey's position in the European Court that TRNC is responsible for the occupied areas. And we won. It saying that court saying that TRNC is a subordinate administration, not a legal entity in international law.
I have in mind this passage. I agree with it. Well, in the beginning, Mr. Tsibilis was giving me the impression that he was suing this TRNC group on the basis that they are individuals who are grouped together and make certain transactions, and it was a description of TRNC given to them in inverted commas to identify their transactions. In other words, I felt from his explanations that he might not really damage our efforts to keep this regime in the illegal situation that it has always been. But now it's clear in my mind that by pursuing this case against the TRNC, inverted commas or no inverted commas, it damages our efforts.
And I understand.
The damage may not be very, very serious, but it is a damage.
Are you familiar with the American resolution that was introduced by the Congressmen Bilirakis and Maloney in New York, the Bill 2597 that allows American citizens who had property in Cyprus to get restitution?
I read it carefully, and my opinion is that this is a good step. There is nothing wrong about it. On the contrary, it's made clear by this bill. I don't know whether it was enacted. It's a law yet. That the TRC is a non-existent entity, international law. It speaks about occupation, which is exactly what is the situation in the north part of Cyprus, Turkish occupation. And this kind of instruments or laws are in line with the correct legal situation prevailing in Cyprus.
The two UN Security Council resolutions, 541 and 550, call upon all countries not to have anything to do with the legal entity TRNC. And this resolution, this American resolution 2597, says simply that Turkey is who the American government will deal with, not TRNC.
Yes, I know.
And this resolution was introduced only a few weeks ago, and very shortly after its introduction, again the law firm of Taneris in Washington attacked it and said that it is attempting to give legal status to the TRNC. This is a total distortion.
Absolutely. It bothers him because it may somehow hinder his proceedings against the TRNC because the bill we are speaking about has as a target for the confiscation of property in Turkey, not TRNC.
The issue of bizonality, the bizonal bicommunal federation, has been promoted for a long time by various circles for the past few decades. You were one of the first legal experts to expose the racism of bizonality.
I do not understand why people still speak about bizonality. I mean, some political parties I'm against bizonality for the following simple reasons. First of all, it's against the rule which prohibits discrimination, racial discrimination. By dividing Cyprus into two areas to be governed by Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots respectively, you are in fact committing a breach of the prohibition of racial discrimination. If I cannot, as a Greek Cypriot, participate in the political administration of part of my country, because only Turkish Cypriots can do that, it's a direct breach of the prohibition of against discrimination, of the rule against discrimination. Secondly, I find that this kind of arrangement will facilitate Turkey to legalize the partition, which is now, for the last 37 years, kept through the military occupation of the northern part of Cyprus. We are not allowed to go there and live, the Greek Cypriots, and the Turkish Cypriots are discouraged to come here to live. So they want to, Turkey always wanted to separate or partition Cyprus. And by accepting this separation, we in fact facilitated partition because it will be legal. thirdly, this entails another danger of recognition, rather of succession of the northern part of Cyprus that will be administered by Turkish Cypriots, and in fact virtually controlled by Turkey, to declare itself one day as an autonomous state and get legal recognition as a state, cutting Cyprus into two pieces in terms of international law and international recognition. Now, many, and the governing, including the governing party, again, say, but this is the only way to reunite Cyprus. How do we reunite Cyprus? By keeping people separately? By not allowing people to live in or mixing the politics in the two states, regardless of their ethnic origin, etc. So now, they of course, again, those who support this solution are invoking the agreements of Makarios and Kyprianou, the so-called high-level agreements, which have been taking place. They have been concluded at a time where there was a danger for the rest of the Cyprus being occupied by Turkey. A. B. In the meantime, there were so many developments that have changed that situation, the background of those agreements. Let me confine myself simply to the fact that in the meantime we became members of the European Union. And can you imagine any country member of the European Union to decide to divide itself into two states, to be governed by two different communities of different ethnic origin?
The various efforts by Turkey to promote the TRNC, or efforts by individuals to promote the TRNC, could be seen as another form of succession, or the road to succession.
Of course.
So any business dealings, such as the recent business dealings that for the generators are steps in that direction.
Anything which promotes that illegal regime gradually may give it a legal standing or a recognition of an illegal situation, an illegal continuation of violations of human rights of the living Cypriots. Because that regime, it has been constructed, in fact, on the basis of violation of human rights. They have that pseudo-state by having people, Turkish Cypriots, including settlers from Turkey, living in properties and houses and homes of the Greek Cypriots, and disallowing the lawful inhabitants to move in that area. In actual fact, I consider the population in the TRNC, so-called TRNC, as being artificial. The genuine lawful inhabitants of that area are forced to live in the government control area.
Do you recommend any legal actions for refugees that would help the situation in Cyprus?
Well, yes. I mean, first of all, they must take steps to disallow our own governments from discussing the possibility of bisonality or granting rights to those that use Greek Cypriot property illegally. In other words, to make any settlement which is contrary to human rights. Secondly, they must, something that I have been always advocating, there must be an organization of a section of the government ready to inform the international community of what is going on here in Cyprus, what are the violations by Turkey. And that is something that should be done continually. That has never been done. In fact, apart from those cases that I have referred to, the applications before the European Commission of Human Rights and the other steps before the European Court of Human Rights.
And in closing, is there any way that Greek Cypriots who are concerned about their properties can contact you for legal advice?
They do. They always do. We are now examining the possibility of some legal steps in both directions that I have told you. But of course, a support from the government is very valuable. There must be a strategy by the government, a program to stop this situation which is going on.
Okay, well, Mr. Loucaides, I thank you very much. We're here with, we conclude this interview with Mr. Loucaides in Nicosia, Cyprus, legal expert on the Cyprus issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Just hold it.